The Modern Warfare 4 beta has apparently already died. At least, that's what you would think if you looked at the player count posts spreading around right now. Modern Warfare 4 has peaked at 115,000 concurrent players on Steam. In a few days, that number had dramatically fallen. So naturally, the conclusion is already everywhere. Modern Warfare 4 is dead, nobody likes it, Call of Duty is finally finished. Except there's one fairly obvious problem with that conclusion. People didn't abandon an entirely finished game. They finished a small, time-limited beta. Although Modern Warfare 4 absolutely has its problems, using this player drop as a definitive proof that the game is failing makes almost zero sense. Let's start with the number everyone's pointing towards here. The Modern Warfare 4 beta reached an all-time Steam peak of around 115,000 concurrent players during its first weekend. After that initial peak, it reportedly fell below 40,000 at certain points. That sounds catastrophic when you present it as Modern Warfare 4 lost almost 2/3 of its players, but that framing leaves out practically all of the context. First, these are concurrent Steam numbers. These numbers don't represent every person who played the beta, they don't include Xbox, PlayStation, or Battle.net, and they definitely don't tell us how many unique players logged on throughout the weekend. Concurrent players are just the number of people playing on one platform at a specific moment. If I play for 3 hours Friday night, finish everything I wanted to, and don't return Monday morning, I'm now part of the supposed player collapse. That doesn't mean I hated the game, it means I played the beta. And there really wasn't that much content to keep somebody playing indefinitely. You had a limited selection of maps, weapons, and modes, you could experiment with the movement, level several guns, try new attachments, and form opinion on the game relatively quickly, but the dedicated COD players probably completed that cycle in 1 to 2 gaming sessions. Once you've tested the weapons you care about, tried every map, and unlocked available rewards, what are you supposed to do? You can continue grinding a temporary build of the game for 8 hours a day just to keep the Steam chart looking healthy. The point is, the beta isn't supposed to replace the full game, it exists to let players test a small portion of it. And people finishing that portion isn't automatically the same thing as people rejecting it. And the other thing is there's another detail getting ignored here. This was the early access portion of the beta. The free, open beta hadn't even started yet. That matters because early access players are naturally going to be the most dedicated group. They're the people who pre-ordered, actively follow COD news, and probably watched hours of gameplay before getting their hands on it. They don't need an entire week to understand the game. They jump in immediately, play heavily during the open window, then move on once they've seen what the beta offers. That is going to create a massive launch spike followed by an equally visible decline. It happens because most of the interested players arrive at almost the same time, not necessarily because they all suddenly decided the game was terrible. The free open beta will be a much more meaningful test. That's when players who weren't willing to pre-order can try Modern Warfare 4 for themselves. It introduces a much larger and potentially more skeptical audience. If those players arrive, play 2 matches, and immediately uninstall, then we have a much more interesting conversation. If the full game launches in October and struggles to retain players only after a couple of weeks, that's an actual problem. But declaring the game dead before the open beta even begins is less of an analysis and more of a race to upload the most dramatic headline. And I want to be clear, none of this means that Modern Warfare 4 is perfect. The beta has legitimate problems. Weapon TTK has needed adjustment. Footstep audio has been controversial. Some players don't like the maps. And matchmaking is still one of the most exhausting arguments surrounding this entire franchise. There are absolutely people who played Modern Warfare 4 and stopped because they didn't enjoy it. I'm not arguing that every person who left secretly loved the game either. I'm arguing that a falling concurrent player count cannot tell us why each person stopped playing, and that difference matters. Some players disliked the game, some finished the available progression, some only had time to play over the weekend, some moved to another platform, and others are waiting for weekend 2. Some were never even planning to spend every waking hour of a beta in the first place. A single graph combines all of those people into one declining line, and then social media assigns the most negative possible motivation to every single one of them. This also exposes a larger problem with the way that we discuss games now. Every new release has to either be breaking records or is completely dead. There's almost no room between those two extremes. The player count goes up and the game is a massive success. It goes down and the game is finished. A patch improves something and the developers save the game. One weapon becomes too strong and the entire game is ruined. Everything has to become a crisis because the beta experienced a predictable decline after its opening weekend is not an exciting opening title. Modern Warfare losing all of its players is. And technically, that number might describe what happened to the concurrent Steam players between 2 selected points. But the implication that 65% of the audience permanently rejected Modern Warfare 4 is something the number cannot prove. It's the same mistake people make when comparing a launch day peak with a weekday low. Of course, fewer people are playing Monday morning than Friday night. Most people have work, school, or other games that they want to play. The initial peak was never going to become the beta's permanent baseline. I think beta burnout is happening faster because of how efficiently players consume games now. Within hours, creators published the best settings, fastest leveling methods, strongest weapons, and optimized attachments. Players immediately copy the meta, grind the rewards, and skip most of the experimentation that used to stretch a multiplayer experience out. By the end of the first day, some players have already been told which guns are useless, which attachments are mandatory, and which maps they're supposed to hate. Then after optimizing every second of discovery out of the experience, everyone wonders why the beta feels finished. That isn't entirely the player's fault. Games are designed around progression, limited rewards, and constant optimization now. Developers encourage people to grind quickly because engagement matters, but it does explain why a limited beta can burn out after one weekend without the underlying game being fundamentally dead. The real question isn't whether Modern Warfare 4 retained its launch peak, and it was never going to. The real questions are, how many people return for the open beta? How does the game respond to feedback? Do the maps and progression hold up when more content becomes available? And most importantly, are people still playing after the full release? Those answers will tell us far more than comparing the highest point of opening night to the lowest point several days later. And right now, I don't think Modern Warfare 4 died. I think the most dedicated players rushed into a limited early access beta and consumed its content faster than Infinity Ward had planned for. Once they did that, they're waiting for the next weekend so that they can do the whole thing over again. The open beta can still expose larger problems. The launch could disappoint, matchmaking, balancing, or a lack of content could also push players away later. But those are future possibilities, not what we can pull from one dramatic Steam graph today. Modern Warfare 4 doesn't need anyone pretending its problems don't exist. It needs criticism based on what the game actually does wrong. And a temporary beta, losing concurrent players after its opening weekend, isn't proof that Call of Duty is dead. It's proof that people finished playing the beta. If you want more Modern Warfare 4 coverage that actually looks beyond the outrage headline, subscribe. I'm new to covering the game and I'll be testing weekend 2 to see whether the open beta supports or completely destroys this argument.